Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about making progress on your goals and where I'm at with learning legato. So, back on the 9th, today's the 27th, back on the 9th of February, I had set some goals to start on the 13th going through some exercises and practicing legato. And today's video is about where we're at. So, today we're going to cover what went wrong, we'll cover what went right, and we'll cover where I'm at right now. So, what went wrong? Well, things seldom go as planned when I'm trying to set goals to learn to play guitar, which is one of the reasons why I think it's important to come to the table and to work on this. So, because things seldom go as planned, I think that it's important to remain flexible and to adapt. So, number one, I started to immediately get an injury to my hand and to my arm. My left arm started to complain about the new exercises, and I started to have problems keeping up with the metronome. Number two, what went wrong was bad technique. So, my instructor, Tom Quayle, who's teaching me legato, said in the material that I needed to learn to relax my hand in like a dead spider form, kind of laying my fingers on the fretboard. And what I found is that I tend to grab the fretboard like this instead of like this, planting my thumb and relaxing my fingers on the fretboard. I tend to grab the fretboard like this, and I always want to place the neck in my hand like this so that my hand is flat and my thumb's riding the top. And in legato, I need to learn to relax my hand, and instead of this kind of approach, I need more of a this kind of approach. And what I found was that keeping my fingers in line with the frets instead of this angle of like moving up or moving down and coming this way at the fretboard like this, going this way at it, what I needed to do was I needed to do it like this and go up and down the fretboard, keeping my thumb in line with my middle finger. And when I was doing it this way, I kept applying leverage with my ring finger, and I was actually getting an injury at the joint right here, at the joint of my finger, when I would bend or when I would try to reach for stuff, because when I was reaching for something here, I would have to, because my hand was so close to the fretboard and I'm grabbing it like this, I would have to do this reach and spread my hand like this in order to get my pinky to reach these large groups that I'm now practicing in legato. But I found that if I simply use my thumb as the pivot point instead of the back of my first knuckle of my hand, but use my thumb, it allows me to reach more easily the parts of the fretboard. So I was getting an injury almost immediately in this part of my arm. I started to, in the back of my hand, I started to get like tendonitis. Like at one time early on, I immediately jumped right into trying to learn how to play fast. And I ended up with tendonitis into my elbow. And I had to wear this brace thing for a little while. Well, that didn't work out. So I had these goals of how I wanted to practice with the metronome, but I couldn't keep up. So I almost immediately started to get an injury because of bad technique. So I now am practicing this dead spider where I lay my fingers on the fretboard, and they're laying on there instead of grabbing it close right here with my hand. I'm now doing this instead of this. And I see in my playing before how I would grab the fretboard like this, almost squeezing it, and I would just lay into this stuff. And that kind of downward pulling like this was giving me an injury in this finger. So I stopped doing that, and it's a hard habit to break. I didn't know I had a bad habit, but I did. So now I'm doing more of a standoff, pivoting with my thumb, and a more of a relaxed grip. Instead of choking the board like this, I'm now grabbing it and pivoting with my thumb instead of placing this joint of my finger against the fretboard in the back like this. This gives me more reach. Instead of this, I've got now this. So I've got more reach. So anyway, that wasn't working. I was getting an injury to my hand. Another thing that didn't work out was I didn't know the scales. I don't know the scale shapes. So because I don't fully know the major scale, I had to spend some time learning scale shapes and find a way to add some legato to those exercises to learn the scale shapes, find a way to add a little bit of legato in there and wait as my hand strength grows and my stamina grows. So playing legato is a completely different technique than anything that I've done in the past. So I've got to allow for some time. I've got to be flexible and adapt to the fact that I just don't have it in my hand yet. So what went right? Well, the good thing about having solid goals is that you have a measuring device to tell you if you're hitting your targets or not. And even if you fall short, you've still got measurable progress. So even though I wasn't able to grab a bunch of exercises to learn legato like I had originally planned, I still was able to work legato into my training, into my practice routine, and get better strength and better dexterity. So, number one, what I learned and what went right was I learned the 5 major scale shapes. And my theory instructor, Michael Palmisano, does a great job of laying out the scale shapes and relating them to each other. How he relates octaves to pentatonics, to the diatonic scale, to arpeggios, and to triads. And those things are all well explained, and he's given me a bunch of backing tracks to work on the material in different keys. So it's a great theory course, but I don't have a huge lick library, and I don't have a method of building my own licks up, and so I just end up falling back on the same old things, and practicing scales gets boring pretty fast. So I'm looking for ways to learn how to build licks and phrases. So number 2, I learned about the modes. So I have an instructor named Danny Gill who is my technique teacher, and he's teaching me several licks and approaches to building phrases using the Ionian or the major mode as a foundation. So as he's teaching me things like hammer-ons, pull-offs, taught me about sequencing, and he's teaching me these licks, and he's using the major mode, the 5 different scale shapes, to learn a process of how to build my own licks. So I'm using that course from my instructor Danny Gill, along with my theory instructor Michael Palmisano, to learn those shapes so that when I do start to practice legato seriously, I'll have a strong foundation of where the notes are. Okay? So those are 2 of the things that went right. Now let's talk about where I'm at. So now, after these past couple of weeks working on legato and the scale shapes, I find that I'm more confident of my understanding of the major and minor diatonic scale. And even though I haven't really covered the minor portion of the theory on the diatonic scale yet, Michael Palmisano has pretty much explained how the minor chords relate to the pentatonic scale in previous weeks of study. So the diatonic minor scale is beginning to show itself to me on the fretboard as I'm playing along with jam tracks, so that I can begin to learn how to use the minor diatonic scale. So it looks like now that I've sat down and gone over and written about how I'm learning and taken a look at my instructors, I can see how the courses fit together to form a curriculum. So one of the things that I can do now is break my studies up into days of the week, so that one day I study theory, the next day I study technique, the next day I study composition, and then so I came up with a schedule so that I can set up like a class schedule, like when I went to college. So here it is. So I came up with a course outline for the rest of the year for 2021, and of course it's subject to change. Of course I have to stay flexible. Okay, so here's the course outline the way that I see it now. For the year 2021, class number 1 is Theory 101. My instructor is Michael Palmisano, and my class schedule is Mondays from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. My next class is Introduction to Technique with my instructor Danny Gill and Tom Quayle, and the class schedule is Tuesdays I work on modes and mode licks, and Wednesday I work on legato. So my third class is with my instructor Brian Serrell, and the class schedule is Fridays from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. And then on Thursdays, in between my Tuesday and Wednesday modes, licks, and legato, on Thursday I have a jam lab, which is an open lab with video recording of my jam session. And this is an application study period to apply the things that I'm currently working on with backing tracks and audio and video recording. And that's on Thursdays between 8 p.m. to 11. So composition is on Friday, where I work on my weekly course with Brian through Active Melody. Then my fifth class of the week is on Saturdays, where I'm producing the recorded video from the Jam Lab and assembling student goals video for the YouTube channel, which is what this is. This video is done on Saturdays, where I'll work on my goals and basically do that after action review to figure out where I'm at and where I'm going to next. And that runs from 6 to 12 p.m. Then I'll launch those videos up to YouTube, and basically Sunday is my play day. I get to just maybe take a day off, maybe catch up on an assignment. Maybe I'm behind from Saturday, and that's my free day to play, just jam along with whoever I'm focusing on at the time. Maybe play along to some Satch, or try to pick out some stuff from Steve Vai, or play along with. It's my play along day. So that's my schedule right now. That the way that I see it. Now, of course, we're here at the table because things don't always work out, and it's important to adapt. So that's pretty much where I'm at today, in 2021, February the 27th, working on legato, the basics of legato. All right, so for this portion of the video, I'm just going to play for you the exercises that I've been going over for the past couple of weeks with my instructor, Danny Gill, and going over technique. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. Okay, so here's shape number 1. These will all be in the key of E major. And this first shape is based on the C form. So I'm going to go through them for you. Here we go. Here's shape number 1. Here is shape number 2. Here is shape number 3. And here is shape number 4. And here is shape 5. So here are those 5 shapes with a backing track. Bye.